Welcome, welcome, welcome to Dr. Rodney Unmasked and Inspired. This is the podcast that's going to be the podcast of podcasts. I am Dr. Rodney, and I welcome you to our show. You're listening to Brother Clay Jackson, a musician here in Philadelphia, and it's about the heart. It's in the heart. He speaks through his music about his relationship with God. And so it's our intro for our show. You'll be hearing it a lot. But welcome, welcome, welcome. We welcome those of you who are viewing us from different platforms. This is my wife, Patricia. And we wanted to just spend a little time getting to know you and allowing you to get to know us. I'm going to start with just asking my wife, what would you like our listeners and our podcast folks to know about you?
Yes, I'm Patricia Rogers, Rowan Rogers, I should say. I was born and raised in New York City, in Harlem. Yes, I'm a New York City girl. And I have been, I guess, a global traveler as I worked with a corporation for 35 years. I'm retired presently.
You look too young to be retired.
Yes, I am. I know I look young, and I'm glad about that. Yeah, but I spent 35 years in the field of human resources. I have 2 sons and some stepchildren. I was previously married, so this is my second marriage. Mm-hmm. And I did it right this time. Yay! I've been divorced 23 some odd years. Mm-hmm. And so I was just used to being on my own, leading my family as a single parent. And then this guy comes along, and I always said, and I have many friends that will testify, that she said she would never get married again. And that was a plan that I had, and it wasn't God's plan. We're here together, and we're going to unmask, and we hope that you can learn from some of our experiences that we've had together.
Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, first off, I think you've made the best decision any woman could have ever made by marrying me. So, I am a native of Columbus, Ohio. I moved to Philadelphia in the year of 2000. I am, as Patricia has mentioned, I am a divorcee. Was married for over 30-something years. Very difficult, challenging divorce. And been separated from my ex for over 5 years. And so when Patricia came into my life, I was in a very difficult moral and spiritual condition. Moral from the perspective of feeling very guilty for some of the things I had done, the decisions I had made, and also feeling defeated because I didn't quite see that coming. And so when God sent Patricia into my life, she came with some new ways of seeing life. She's refreshing. I saw things in her that made me discover my youth again. And I so appreciate that. But I'm also a pastor. And the church that I lead have gone through that divorce with me. And that has been very difficult as well. 23 years, I led a congregation and continue to lead a congregation. And I found something very powerful about the whole process of just leading people and also having to become vulnerable about your own humanity. And so this podcast is really inspired by what I've gone through and my willingness to see and experience vulnerability on a day to day basis, which means in this wonderful relationship I have with my brand new wife, we're married 6 months,
Yay, he remembers 6 months. That's a good thing.
that we're able to talk about some things
Mhm.
that I hope will be a blessing to you and inspirational to you. So Rodney is a person who has journeyed a lot as well. A lot of traveling, experiencing different cultures around the world. I'm an academic at heart. I love research, love information and putting things together, information, ideas, but I'm also an entrepreneur at heart. Entrepreneurial from the perspective of since a kid, I've always had a desire to build something. And that building something oftentimes meant that I had to learn by lived experiences. I think there's a very powerful moment that you come to in your life. It's a very powerful moment when you realize that life isn't what you think it should be, no matter how hard you work at it. You know, you're told all of that all the
Mhm.
time, that just work hard and everything will work well for you and work out for you.
Mhm.
Right? But in my case, I had to learn some very hard knocks
Mhm.
in very difficult and challenging times. But that has made me who I am today. And so I am so thankful that you are going to engage with Pat and I at times, and then other folks who will be called into this space with us and talk about some of those vulnerable moments. Now, we're going to be sharing with you in this short period of time just a few lessons we've come to learn in our 6 months of being together.
And this is the first vulnerable moment, the
This,
challenges that we faced.
yes, is the first vulnerable moment.
Hmm.
So I think that probably one of the biggest challenges, hurdles that we have faced in our being together is the sense of two independent people who have been making decisions for their life and have been working towards certain kinds of goals and have made those decisions oftentimes based on our sense of desire and direction and vision for our lives.
Yes.
And so, very few people have been given the opportunity to kind of guide, at least my life,
Hmm.
in the directions and choices that I've had to make. And so, independence is something that I've almost embellished as part of my, standard for living. And I
Yeah.
say embellishment because, in some ways, that is a hard truth.
Hmm.
And there's some things that need to be unpacked about
Yeah.
what independence is. And in marriage, I found that part of my journey is to really truly understand from the marriage perspective what it means to have been a person who has been married for over 30 something years and have made all of the major decisions, not just in my personal life, but for my family and also for the church. And now, when it comes to operating with a woman who is strong and had to handle her business, what are some of your thoughts about, the idea of independence now creating an environment where we both are unified? What's been some of your challenges?
I would say the biggest challenge is being inclusive in decision making. I've always had to make decisions for my family and make them on my own.
Hmm.
And not even consider, another person. And so, of course, as we come together these last 6 months, the challenge has been, how do I, let that guard down and the guard is just thoughts around, well, nobody tells me what to do. I can do this all by myself.
And have done it.
And have done it by myself.
Right.
And so I think the biggest challenge for me has been being considerate that another person can add that value, and we can collectively make decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And trusting that, right?
And trusting that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would say the same. I would say that part of this 6 months has been learning how to be more of a person that listens and submit to your wisdom. Because you have great experience, you have a great understanding of what it means to feel valued, right? And also my sense of self-determination has to sometimes take a back seat to that. There's, I've said this before, I have this high tolerance for risk taking. Some people like to gamble, some people like to do all kinds of risky things. Well, my risk tolerance for business, creating opportunities, those things are something that I know that I have a pretty high risk tolerance for, and I almost see them as normal. And so I have a wife that I realize now more than ever before is very strategic, needs data to make informed decisions, and also requires that I'm able to articulate that to her in a way that it makes sense for her, not for me.
Yes. And this way, I get to determine whether I want to take the risk or not.
That's right. That's right. So, exactly.
Yeah.
And here's the powerful point about this. There's a value system that's in place with both of us now more than ever before, is that of agreement. And so agreement is something that we're learning has so much importance in our day-to-day lives. I've even gone as far as said, hey, if we don't agree, I'm not doing it. I'll do my best to explain what I'm thinking about. And if you need clarity, I'll give you space to think about what I've shared and come back to questions. We can talk about it, and vice versa. So we're learning that the key to our relationship is better communication.
And the word we, how can we be the best is the key.
That's right.
There are times when I independently make decisions, and times when you do the same. And we can call each other out on it. And there's times where it's like a we, and sometimes it's an I. And I think in relationships, that's the fine point, is really knowing when it's a we.
That's right.
There's times I've said things like, I am going to do this, and I'm going to do that.
You said that quite often.
And Rodney's corrected is like, we are going to do what? And so it takes time to, in these last 6 months, really understanding, when does he want to be included? When is it a we and when is it an I?
Right.
And I think every married couple goes through that.
Absolutely.
As they figure out where are the boundaries here.
100%.
And there's no right or wrong.
Yeah. So it's kind of a dance, right?
Yes, it is.
It's a dance.
It's a learning about each other.
Yeah. It's a going back and forth. It's wanting to make sure that we also don't offend. We are sensitive to that, right?
And we're old enough to be sensitive to that.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yes.
So here's a funny thing that happens when it's part of this 6 months journey. My wife, when we get into the car, she is super hypersensitive
Yes, I am.
to the driving experience. Now, I've been driving since 12 years old. I have not been the cause of anybody's accident. I have been a pretty studious driver and have had all kinds of different training in driving. And so it's one of the highlights of living in a Midwestern life.
Mhm.
Born and raised in Columbus, Ohio, it was like being in the country. My parents would give me the car at 12, 13 years old to drive to the local store and come back home from the grocery store, no problem. So I have had a multiplicity of experiences in driving, a long, long history of driving, and not just cars and trucks and motorcycles. And so my wife gets in the car, and as part of her process that how she thinks about the whole driving experience, I watch her watch every move I make in the car.
I wasn't part of your experience.
And so right. So this is a part of the independence I'm talking about, right? When you feel you have been taught and brought up in a certain way and in a certain environment that you make decisions and nobody's looking over your shoulder and making sure that you're making the right turn the right way without any other cars coming. Nobody's doing that. People are
Mhm.
getting in the car, relaxing and enjoying it, but my wife gets really, really sensitive when she gets into the car. And so I tease her a lot.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, he says, "Do you want to drive?"
yeah,
And
that's
then I
right.
just kind of shut up
That's right.
and sit back until the next time.
Right, right. So the independence, right, is always being challenged to some degree.
Mhm.
It's in our egos. For men, particularly, it's probably more of our egos than anything else. Because this is my wife. Is truly a God gift in terms of her intellect, her sensitivity, her spirituality, her abilities to and desire to see people, not just us, but people flourish.
Yes, but also tell them about the question you asked me. Like, why was I so hypersensitive?
Yeah.
And what
So
you learned from
so
that.
you tell them. You
Oh,
you you
okay.
say why you're hypersensitive
Okay. So
in
I'm
the car. In the car.
hypersensitive with drivers because I grew up in New York City. And I actually didn't have a car my whole, I'm going to say adolescent life.
Mhm.
He was driving at the age of
12.
12.
Yeah.
I didn't get my driver's license until I was away from New York, and I
Mhm.
was 20,
Mhm.
20 or 21. Well, anyway, my experience with driving was crowded streets, accidents,
Yeah.
right and left, people honking their horns in
Mhm.
New York.
Mhm.
You had to be really vigilant about looking both ways
Yeah.
and up and down and all around you.
Mhm.
And so um, that is something that's inbred within me.
Mhm.
And I do it for myself. And I tend to do it for others too. Anybody else who's driving in the car. Not realizing that it really
Yeah,
had an
it
impact
you
on
know,
the
it
other
messes
person.
with it messes with your ego. That's what it is. It just messes with my ego. I'm like, is she really checking me like that?
And I'm thinking, I'm helping us be safe.
Right, right, right. And so what we do, quite frankly, we laugh a lot at our sense of independence, at our way. And I
And we
tell,
learn,
yeah,
we
yeah,
try to understand
yes,
the
yes,
why
that's
too.
right,
Yeah.
that's right. So independence
Mhm.
is something that it is a wonderful ideal, right? But
Mhm.
independence and unity with someone that you know that you love and you want to care for and you want to make sure that they're well and good. Independence, bringing that into the relationship of her value system, my value system, and working towards the oneness of unity where the I become less and less, and it's always the we, what's best for us together.
Mhm.
I think we are on a magnificent journey
Yes.
together.
Yes.
And at this stage of life, I couldn't ask for a better friend,
Oh, thank you.
lover,
Thank
and supporter.
you. Dito.
Yes. And fellow dreamer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Thank
So
you.
we're on this journey together. And we're not going to be pulling any punches, folks. With our guests, we're going to be asking some hard questions. Why? Because we want to dig down to the heart of things. So this is not the channel to come and hear the latest sports conversations about who the GOAT is and all of that other stuff, who are the Super Bowl champions. Oh, by the way, Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah, they're the champions. But this is not that kind of channel. It's the channel that you hear about some real lived experiences. Things
Real
that,
talk.
that's
Yes.
right, real talk.
Yeah.
And real people sharing with you. And hopefully they're able to tap into their superpower, like Pat and I have, about transparency, authenticity, and vulnerability. So we're welcoming you into our space. And hopefully, we pray that you'll be blessed. So this is the beginning, our very first of many podcasts. And we hope to hear from you. And by the way, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Dr. Rodney Unmasked and Inspire. On our YouTube, also on our Facebook. You can go on and talk with others about this broadcast and some of the subject matters that we'll be bringing up. We're looking forward to that. God bless you all.
All right, we can go with that.